Welcome everyone to today's webinar, where we're going to look at 3 steps to help us all navigate the new apprenticeships reality. So what we'll cover today, we'll have a quick introduction to MZ for those who don't know us, and we'll also have a brief mention of context, why this is so important right now. Then we'll run through each of our 3 steps in turn. Firstly, how to think more broadly about your current apprenticeship offering. Secondly, how to start to let the market lead your planning thoughts. And thirdly, how to enhance your conversations and negotiations with employers by evidencing the return on investment they get. We'll then wrap things up. So very briefly, as I don't want to dwell on this, here at MZ, our core mission is to help people make smarter decisions by providing really good data on the labour market. We provide that data in a range of tools to best fit what you need. Now, of course, we don't have all of the answers, but we can be a really important piece of the jigsaw puzzle when it comes to your strategic planning and internal engagement. And that's certainly the case with apprenticeships. So why is this so important right now? Well, it goes without saying that you will all know how big an issue this is right now for the sector. Apprenticeships is really hot news at the minute. Some colleges are doing well following recent changes. I think it's fair to say some are struggling a little bit, but most are wondering about what happens next. From my perspective and my recent conversations with the sector, 3 things keep cropping up when we talk about apprenticeships. Firstly, employer uncertainty. Whether those employers are levy payers or non-levy payers, it seems that lots of employers are unsure of what's happening. They are holding off on recruitment of apprenticeships. And indeed, some employers are just taking the levy hit and aren't recruiting at all. Secondly, when it comes to colleges themselves, lots have told me that sectors where they've previously had big apprenticeship starts have sometimes dropped off significantly. Now, whether this is because of some of the employer uncertainty I just mentioned, or whether it's because employers are tendering for provision whereas they previously haven't, or indeed because of the third reason that keeps cropping up, and that's increased competition from other providers, universities and private training providers. So how can FE colleges be proactive about this? How can you get out on the front foot and really navigate this new and uncertain apprenticeship environment? This is where our 3-step guide can begin to help by giving you some simple steps to moving forwards positively. And step 1 is all about your current offering. What do you already do in apprenticeships and what do you do well? The things to consider from a labour market perspective, and that's an important point to clarify because, of course, there are a number of other factors in apprenticeship planning decisions, such as funding rates, staffing decisions, endpoint assessments. But from a labour market perspective, the things that are really important are things such as opportunities for wider industry sector engagement. So stuff that you already do, are there opportunities for wider engagement with employers in similar industries? Are there new industries that you could engage for stuff that you already do pretty well? And how do those 2 things help you with more targeted engagement of employers and apprentices rather than a more scattergun approach? Here's an example. Imagine you are a college in the northwest of England and you are delivering business admin apprenticeships right across the region. You do a decent number, about 200 a year, and they all come from an existing relationship with the local NHS trust. This is something you want to expand and you're considering how to do that. Well, it's good news there because, as you can see, MZ data suggests that there are a lot of jobs that currently lend themselves well to apprenticeships in this area, more than 400,000, and that's predicted to grow by more than 10,000 over the coming years. But the question is, which employers and which industries employ these people? And here's the answer. So here we have the top 10 industries that employ those jobs that are directly related to business admin apprenticeship. Remember when I talked about this example, this particular college has a strong relationship with basically a single employer, and that's the local NHS trust. And you can see hospital activities are in the table there, fourth down. So they have a good number of jobs, and that's going to grow. But look at all of the other industries as well. This is a framework and a standard that this college delivers well, and there are a lot of jobs and a lot of industries that really could be targeted in a fairly systematic way to help develop out and grow existing expertise. Step 2 is where we look outside of what you already do, and we start to think about how industry and occupation data can guide you towards new apprenticeship business. So again, let's consider this from a labour market perspective. Important things to consider are, what are the real growth occupations? What jobs really are growing in your area, particularly those that are directly relatable to apprenticeship frameworks and standards? Which industries employ them? So who are the employers who employ these folks? And where are those businesses located in the region or regions that you're interested in? So let's start by thinking about growth occupations. What is the job data telling us about market potential for apprenticeships? So here's another example, again, in the Northwest. And these are the top 10 biggest employing occupations in the Northwest that map to an apprenticeship standard, in this case at level 3. Now we can do a number of things with this data. Firstly, we consider, for these jobs that are seeing big growth, which apprenticeship standards and how many apprenticeship standards does that job map to? And you can see here, some jobs map to one, some jobs map to more than one apprenticeship standard. We can look at openings data. So openings data is new jobs plus churn within the existing workforce for each of these jobs listed. This gives us a really good view of potential market for apprenticeship openings and apprenticeship engagement with employers of these people. You'll see right in the middle there, business sales executives. More than 800 openings each year. That's something we're going to come back to shortly. Next, we can think about which industries and which employers are employing those jobs that we've just seen. And we can also think about where those businesses are located. So as I just mentioned, we saw in the previous slide that there's a decent demand for sales executives in the Northwest. So more than 800 openings each year in the coming years for that particular job. What this slide shows is which industries are employing business sales executives in the Northwest, both jobs right now and job growth over the next 4 or 5 years. As well as retailers, which we might expect to employ sales executives, you'll see there are other sectors such as engineering and management consultancy that also have a big demand for sales executives, which, as we've seen, is a job that maps nicely to apprenticeship standards. And we can also think about where in the Northwest these industries are largely located. And you can see there that there's a decent spread across the region, which can be useful intelligence for your employer engagement and your outreach activity. Our third step is where we take a look outside of market potential and we actually think about our direct conversation with employers. So the question here is, why should employers want to employ apprentices? And why should employers want to engage with your college to do so? Now, these questions are really important right now, particularly given the stuff I mentioned earlier on around employer uncertainty and competitive tendering and other providers competing for the same business. How can you get ahead of that? Again, things to consider from a labour market perspective. How can you explain to the employer the return on investment that the apprentice gets and the return on investment that the employer themselves get for the investment they're making in apprenticeships? And thirdly, we can look at a measure of increased workforce productivity. This last one is brand new and something that MZ have just developed. So it's really red hot off the press, and I'd love to talk to you more about it. But I can tell you it's exciting to be able to measure the increased productivity in the workforce that can be attributed to apprentices. As you can imagine, that can be a very exciting thing for an employer to understand and can give you the edge in your conversations. Likewise, that return on investment data and analysis can be equally exciting to employers and apprentices. For their investment, what do they get back? This is something that you can talk to employers about and talk to individual apprentices about and really get the edge on others who can't necessarily talk in the same terms. So there are 3 steps, and it's fair to say that, in summary, it's a tough competitive time right now for FE colleges. But here at MZ, we are really here to help. Those 3 steps that we've briefly looked at there have told us that we can look at maximising employer engagement from our current offer by thinking of wider industry opportunities. We should let the market lead by using comprehensive data to really enhance our planning and our engagement activities. And we should consider ways to supercharge our conversations with employers by really being able to explain the value proposition in those conversations. So what next? Well, we've produced a 3-step guide in document form, which talks in more detail about those 3 steps that I've briefly talked through on today's webinar. We'll be sending this out to everyone who's registered for today's webinar, and please do feel free to share that more widely with colleagues. And following that, I'd really love to speak to you all individually about your specific apprenticeship plans and your specific apprenticeship challenges, so that we can have a discussion about how MZ data and MZ services might fit into that and where we might be able to help you out. So please do drop me a line. You can see my details on this slide, and you'll also receive them as part of the materials that I've just mentioned, which we will be sending out following this webinar. In the meantime, thanks all for listening and enjoy the rest of your day.